just went bought me a laundry machine, so I can keep washing money. Them gon' act like they down with the team, but they ain't get nothing from me. I have to get dripped before I hit the scene.
What's good, man? We back with another one. Hey, look, I want to take y'all on the journey real quick. Just follow me. Just follow. All right. Think about this. It's the golden age of the internet. You know what I'm saying? This before TikTok. You know, this before TikTok. This when Instagram was really an app where folks would post pictures of themselves and all of this. You know what I'm saying? This back when the X app was actually called Twitter, and you know you could text in a tweet from your phone. You know, so you could send it to a number and it'll post on your timeline. All kinds of prehistoric stuff. You know what I'm saying? But at this time, the internet, you know, I feel like human culture, it's always been centered around storytelling. And at this time in the internet, early days of the internet, there was a culture of storytelling. And they used to call them like, I think it was like the creepypasta or some stuff like that. They had these websites where young adults, teenagers, you know what I'm saying, the youth would go read scary stories. And there's one scary story that caught fire. And it was about, I want to say like maybe it was in England or something. And the story is that there's this like super tall guy that only comes out at night. He has extremely long arms and he's just a very skinny man. And whenever you see him, he has on a black suit, a blank white face, and his arms and his hands and skin are like all white. And they called him Slender Man. And so this story, apparently it took fire and it captured the imaginations of the youth at that time that was on the internet, you know what I'm saying? And it spread, it became like a pop culture thing. But as a part of that, you know, whenever a thing becomes a thing, something bad happens. And so there were some kids that ended up, you know, there were 3 kids. I think there were 3 kids. Now the story a little fuzzy for me. We're about to watch a video, all this gonna make sense here in a second. The story a little fuzzy for me. There were 3 kids. One was the ringleader, one was following along, and one was the actual victim. And so the ringleader took the Slender Man story. Maybe she was like consumed by it. Like she was just getting too much of it. And now she's starting to think it's like real life. And so she took the Slender Man story. She got one of her friends and they conspired to kill the 3rd girl. And they were like using Slender Man as a reason to draw her out into the forest. And then when they got back, I think they actually said that Slender Man did it. But eventually they got caught, you know what I'm saying? And they were sent to jail, and I think they were sentenced or something like that. They went through some kind of legal proceedings. I don't know the full extent of it, but they went through legal proceedings. And so today I'm scrolling through YouTube trying to find a little video to react to, and I see this about the Slender Man stabbing. You know what I'm saying? So the judge has finally made a ruling in this case, and I figure, you know what better to watch than this? I was like, you know, get my little story time off, you know what I'm saying? Do the whole 9. So we're gonna watch the video together, see what happened. I haven't seen this. Fresh watch, fresh reaction. Let's dive into it.
Stabbed the classmate nearly 24 times while her friend egged her on. The case made headlines everywhere.
Stabbed her friend 24 times, 24 times, bro, with a butcher knife. This little girl was insane.
24 times while her friend egged her on. The case made headlines everywhere when the young girl said they did it to make a faceless and fictional character happy.
The Slender Man, I'm telling you, bro, when I say that this was like a huge pop culture thing at the time. Huge.
Now, years after the shocking stabbing, a judge made a jaw-dropping ruling for the then preteen who nearly killed her classmate.
This was a serious criminal case, attempted murder.
Hold on, Shorty didn't die? See, it's so fuzzy. It's been a minute, man. It's just fuzzy. Dang, I thought Shorty died, but I'm glad she didn't, of course. But that's crazy. 24 times, bro.
There are 2 defendants in the case. Both were children at the time that it happened, 12 years old. The victim was a child.
Morgan Geyser wasn't even a teenager yet when she and her friend Anissa Wire lured their classmate Peyton Lautner to a park in Waukesha, Wisconsin. It was there Morgan stabbed Peyton 19 times.
I said Europe and some more stuff, man. This was in Wisconsin.
Well, Anissa...
I think the original story started in Europe. And, you know, America, we go too far. It's per usual.
Egged her on. The 2 left Peyton to die inside that park, but she was able to escape and flag down someone who called 911. When authorities caught up to Geyser and Wire, the 2 told police they did it to earn the right to be servants of this sinister but fictional character, Slender Man.
If you've been injured in a car accident, don't call an attorney. Use this AI app instead. Man. That's what I did. And
they told police they feared the tall and faceless character would harm their families if they didn't carry out the attack. Thankfully, Peyton survived. Meanwhile, Geyser and Wire were both charged in adult court with first-degree attempted intentional homicide. In December of 2017, Anissa Wire was sentenced to 25 years in a mental hospital after pleading guilty to being a party to attempted second-degree intentional homicide. However, Geyser was convicted, but found not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect, and sentenced to up to 40 years in a psychiatric hospital. In 2021, Anissa Wire was granted supervised release after only spending 4 years in a mental hospital. Under her release,
she went from 25 years in a mental hospital down to 4 with supervised release.
She was ordered to live with her father, receive psychiatric treatment, and submit to around the
I mean, I guess it's not prison or jail, so they might not be as stringent to show that you on the up and up or something, I guess. I don't know. That's crazy, though.
clock GPS monitoring. But the monitor was removed in September of 2023. Now Morgan Geyser is hoping for the same. She applied for release 3 different times. Her first 2 petitions she withdrew. Then in April of last year, Judge Michael Boren denied her.
So basically, the other girl chilling. She out. Living regular life. She got to go talk to a psychiatric every now and then, but she ain't got no ankle monitor. She ain't scot-free. She did her time. Kinda, but
request.
This court is satisfied by evidence that's.
I ain't even gonna do it, man. I ain't even gonna do it. Y'all don't watch my videos. You tell me what you think I'm thinking, what the question is that I want to ask here. But I don't want to do it. It's inflammatory, you know what I'm saying? What's the point of bringing that into it? You know, but I just wonder sometimes. But hey, they out, you know, happy for them.
Clear.
But I wonder.
And convincing that Ms. Geyser does pose a significant risk of bodily harm to herself, to others, or of serious property damage for the reasons that I've stated. Now, as she works hard, she continues to do what she's supposed to do, but that doesn't change this risk. Remember that the community is concerned with risk, dangerous risk. The community is concerned to a great extent as well with what happens to Ms. Geyser. But the primary concern in the balancing, and we talked about balancing earlier, in the Randall case, they talk about the balancing that goes on in the court's decision. The ultimate determination of dangerousness requires a careful balance.
I ain't gonna hold you, bro. This judge blowing me. Bro, your voice is... Imagine having to listen to this all day. Let's see what else is all going on in the video. I ain't finna just listen to y'all. Yeah, brother.
Balancing of society's interest in protection from harmful conduct against the equitee's interest in personal liberty and as well as autonomy. So that's the balance. But the balance is the public interest in staying away from harmful conduct. Under these circumstances, this court satisfied that the scales tip in favor of the public, and it tips that way by clear and convincing evidence. So in this matter, after hearing all of the credible evidence, which I'm satisfied was very well presented by both the state as well as by the defense, I'm satisfied that the petition should be denied.
But she reapplied 6 months later, and it appeared 4th time was the charm. At Geyser's latest hearing for conditional release, the state called Dr. Brooke Lundbaum, who appeared virtually. Back in April of last year, Dr. Lundbaum testified the now 22-year-old hasn't thought about the fictional Slender Man for a while, but was adamant there were still concerns about her release. However, at Geyser's latest hearing, Dr. Lundbaum said she was in support of Geyser being granted conditional release.
At this point, I am in favor or in support of her petition for conditional release. Specifically, I don't believe that she currently poses a significant risk of substantial harm to herself, others, or to property damage.
Say she don't pose a significant risk, but there is still a risk. What if she get out and go crazy? I don't know, man.
So at the time of the index offense, there was consensus amongst a variety of professionals involved in the case that she was experiencing symptoms of a psychotic spectrum disorder that was eventually pretty consistently diagnosed as schizophrenia. The symptoms that she displayed of particular relevance were delusional ideas related to the fictional character of Slender Man, but also a variety of auditory and visual hallucinations, disorganized thinking, disorganized behavior, and instability in her emotional regulation.
That's scary, bro. That's scary. You never know what nobody is dealing with and going through, man. You never know. Y'all be safe out here, man. Be safe.
Were those symptoms things that were observed objectively as well as reported by Ms. Geiser subjectively?
Yes.
And were those symptoms something that professionals believed prompted the index offense?
Yes.
As of today's date, are you aware of Ms. Geiser reporting any symptoms of delusions or hallucinations or any kind of psychotic symptomology?
In review of the records, the last...
She better not say she don't have none. If you say you ain't got none, but you dang near murdered somebody 10 years ago because you was having them, now I ain't gonna believe you. Now I feel like you just completely flat out lying. So let's see.
Time that she either evidenced or expressly discussed overt psychotic spectrum symptoms was in about 2021, I believe it.
So she's saying it's been 3 years she heard a voice in her head or seen something that wasn't really there. I wouldn't trust it, bro. I'd trust somebody that's like, yeah, I see stuff every now and then, but I could tell I've taught myself to know the difference between what's actual reality and what's fictional. I would prefer someone that says that or someone that said, no, I'm cool, I'm good. No, I don't see nothing.
It was. So there's been a several year period now where there's been an absence of those acute or overt psychotic spectrum symptoms.
If you ever want to know why I block ads with Pi, this
say
is
acute,
why I block
overt.
ads with Pi. I just found what may be the biggest...
Using them descriptor words to change what she's saying. So she has symptoms, they just ain't crazy.
I want to ask about the discussions that you have had in the past with Ms. Geiser during this period when she claimed to have fabricated the symptoms.
Hey, I come from a relatively small town. Growing up, I didn't think it was a small town, but you know, as I've gotten into the world and I see how, you know, the world works and how big the world is, I come from a relatively small town. I ain't know nothing about, like, you know, you kind of hear stuff about people being crazy or touched or blessed, you know, we from the South, you know, we got a different language, we got a different way to translate words. But you don't really think about the extent to which this problem plagues America. You hear about schizophrenia and blah, 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 but it's probably closer than you think, man, and that is scary.
What explanation did she give you for the index offense?
So that has shifted a bit with her self-report, again, not being particularly credible within the context of this kind of conversation. She, at various points, though, maintained that she was being sexually abused within her family home and had essentially engaged in the index offense with desire to essentially escape her home life. Again, that not being consistent with...
That ain't the story I heard 10 years ago, but it's a good attempt at a defense, and she probably really was getting assaulted and whatnot. And trigger warning for those that it impacts, but I ain't saying it's convenient. No, it ain't convenient that she says that, no.
The totality of information that exists.
Have you ever asked Ms. Geiser why she would claim that she had fabricated those symptoms?
We did discuss that during the current clinical interview for the current petition. Um, she had vocalized that um, it's been difficult for her to appreciate and understand the different experiences and symptoms she's experienced over time, in part due to the young age that she was when the index offense occurred, in part due to memory not necessarily being fully formed or being impacted by the severity of her symptoms over time. Also, there's been changes simply because of development and maturity, changes in her chemical makeup as she's continued to get older.
I gotta do it. All right, we need her to go advocate for all these black boys to get locked up at early ages, young. They going through the juvenile detention system, you know what I'm saying, and all this bull crap that leads them to be stuck in the prison life cycle for the rest of their life. They was kids, they was underdeveloped, you know what I'm saying? They probably was dealing with some schizophrenia, you know what I'm saying? There's probably all kinds of stuff going on that could potentially help these boys see the light of day and show the world that they've learned from their mistakes and they want to contribute to society in a positive way. But, you know what I'm saying? The world just ain't always balanced and even, man. You got to work within the confines that you're given.
Her current understanding is that she experienced fantasy related to these different fictional characters. And within the context of her mental illness, fantasy essentially became blurred with reality, where she had a difficult time determining the difference between essentially what's fiction versus what's real.
Dr. Lundbaum did express concern that Geyser could be vulnerable to manipulation or exploitation based on not developing the same types of relationships or friendships that others have experienced growing up. She testified Geyser had been making better headway with her mom, her grandmother, and her brother since her dad passed away.
In and of itself, fractured family relationships wouldn't necessarily augment a person's risk if there's additional levels of support that they can rely upon. In Ms. Geyser's case, she would have the benefit of rather significant professional support surrounding her if she were to be discharged to the community.
I ain't gonna hold you. No, leave her in there. Leave her in there. Give it a few more years. You know what I'm saying? Let her sit down, think about it, get a little bit more rehabilitation. You know what I'm saying? Ease her way back into society. You know, you don't want to get her out there, she get overwhelmed, and then she just tweak out one day on somebody, you know. I give her
ideally,
a little bit of time.
She will continue to bridge those gaps that exist with.
She definitely advocating for it, though. I love that. She doing her job. She getting her money's worth. Brooke Lundbaum is showing that she is a class act, and she's showing why you should hire her. You feel me? But no, need to leave Shorty in that crazy house for a little bit longer
with her family members and continue to strengthen those. However, frankly, a lot of people in the community don't have great relationships with their family, and in and of itself, like I said, that doesn't necessarily suggest that she would be a higher risk for violence. It's just one factor to consider, especially when we're creating a risk management plan for her discharge to the community.
Although Dr. Lundbaum agreed Geyser should be granted conditional release, she testified everything will still be a process for Geyser, and she'll likely need therapy the rest of her life.
It is a process that will continue likely throughout the entirety of her life, but certainly throughout the last, whatever it's been, 8, 9, 10 months, there has been a noticeable improvement in her understanding of her mental health, how she discusses her mental health.
I'm gonna let this ad play.
From homemade recipe to house.
I think they said Shorty like 22 right now. They say your brain prefrontal cortex, I don't know, something like that. They say your brain doesn't stop developing until you're 25. I would say leave her in jail till she's 25. I'm not sure where we stop. OBS stopped working, but we gonna jump right back in.
He also testified in Geyser's hearing last April. The time he said that she had enough treatment, and this time around was no different.
Is it important that Ms. Geiser is engaged in individual and group therapy?
Yes.
Why is that important?
Well, she has very significant anxiety issues, and she has had, I think, what can only be called a bizarre adolescence, and needs help with sort of developmental issues. She has had very limited exposure to peers. She's had very limited access to education and independence. And so she's going to need a lot of help in becoming the mature person that she wants to be.
What's your ultimate conclusion in this case with respect to Ms. Geiser's petition for conditional release?
I believe it's appropriate.
What do you base that
on? Essentially that she has had multiple opportunities to be in the community and has done very well. And that I think there's nothing to suggest that she is a danger to herself or others.
Outside of the fact that at 12 years old, they try to commit a murder. I ain't gonna lie to you. I believe in the power of redemption. I believe in the power of learning from your mistakes and owning up to them and trying to be a better person. But deep down in the back of my mind, I feel like it's very hard for human beings to change. We can want to change, and then we can take the steps to actually do so over time. But change is hard, man. People don't like change. People do not like change at all. And so when I see situations like this, it's like, I want to believe that you're working to be a better person, but that could all be a facade. You're just waiting for the next opportunity to go revert back to your old ways, you know?
And I think there's very little at this point that Winnebago can do for her, and that's what they would say as well. I think it's in her interest and in everybody's interest to try to help her now become the person she can become.
Well, I want to push back on that. I mean, one might say she's locked in Winnebago, nobody's being harmed, leave her there. What's the problem? What's the problem with doing it that way?
Buddy asking the tough questions.
It's not hurting her.
Yeah, I guess there's no treatment any longer that Winnebago has to offer her that's going to be useful. So there's nothing that she has to gain by being there. Second, there's nothing to...
It's not about what she has to gain. It's about what society has to lose. You feel me? We can't have her come out here and get the wilding out, and then somebody else innocent gets a life took. You know what I'm saying?
Suggest that would be dangerous outside of Winnebago. Done nothing to suggest she's dangerous at Winnebago to others, and since 2021, nothing to suggest she's dangerous to herself. And third, she's a young woman with great potential, and she's not going to realize that unless she has an opportunity to get into the world and start to have more interpersonal interactions that are appropriate with peers, that she has more education opportunities, that she has the opportunity to be independent.
Hey guys, did you know some drivers are ditching their car insurance and they're doing this instead?
In a more significant way.
In terms of her future dangerousness as we try to predict it, is it your opinion that it would therefore make her less dangerous? It would make Ms. Geiser less dangerous if she's given the opportunity to move to a group home and expand her growth as an individual?
I don't think she's going to become dangerous to other people, whether she's at Winnebago or not. I think that there is the risk that over time, if she is limited by the things that Winnebago can offer her, I could imagine her becoming hopeless at some point and potentially becoming a danger to herself. So yes, perhaps ironically, I think she would be safer outside of Winnebago.
So from your professional opinion, her risk to others sort of remains the same in or out. You don't see that changing. But you use the word ironically, the risk to herself, self-injurious behavior increases the longer she would remain at Winnebago without the opportunity to expand herself.
I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned at some point she's going to start feeling hopeless.
The final psychologist to be called was Dr. Deborah Collins. She's been evaluating Geyser since 2014. Dr. Collins said Geyser told her she can't forgive herself for what she did to Peyton Lautner when they were 12.
Morgan continued in that, I believe in that meeting with you.
Legal Mental Health Institute, who also testified in favor of her release. But when it came time for arguments, the state was firm. They didn't want Morgan Geyser to be released.
As the court pointed out last time, and as Randall indicates, the court is not bound by the conclusion that the experts have reached, even if those opinions are uncontroverted. So certainly the court has to make up its own mind as to whether or not the evidence at this point indicates a substantial risk of bodily harm to herself or to others. And last time, Judge, you started your analysis looking at the factors as they're set out in 971.17 sub 4 sub D. And after it indicates the court shall grant the petition unless it finds by clear and convincing evidence the person would pose a significant risk of bodily harm to himself or herself, the statute indicates the court may consider without limitation because of enumeration, number one, the nature and circumstances of the crime. That's where you started your analysis last time, Judge, and it's the state's position that this offense alone is enough to demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence that there's a substantial risk here to others and to herself.
That is a violent crime.
The court pointed out that this was a brutal attempted murder. The effort to stab somebody 19 times. But then she's not dead, but then they leave. Of course, with the idea or thinking that she'll bleed to death.
It's the fact that you have and I think this is what worries the court, and I mean this is what worries society. I feel like human beings have a certain capacity for violence. And depending on who you are, you may have more capacity for violence, you may have less. And if you can go out and stab a person 19 times, then your capacity for violence is a lot higher than the average human being. And if you go out into society with that, what happens if you get pissed off in a road rage incident? You know what I'm saying? You might get out of it.
You know, when I think about this, Judge,
and then you just left her there to die. You know what I'm saying? So that goes to show like a lack of regard for human life. It's a dangerous combination.
Can't help but thinking,
Waukesha,
most people in society are not capable of committing the offense that Morgan Geyser committed.
Well, at no surprise, Geyser's attorney argued she should be given a chance to be outside the mental health facility.
And Dr. Lundbaum, with that very long history, has conducted a number of evaluations and at least 2 conditional release reports, if not more. I think more than that, actually. And last time Dr. Lundbaum testified, the state called her last time as well to meet their burden of proof. She indicated that she did not support release. So what does the state do now? In January of 2025, they call Dr. Lundbaum again. And now their witness takes the stand and testifies under oath that based on her
kick off your watch party with Specs Game Day Ready Sale. Cheers to savings.
Deep analysis in this case, understanding the statutory criteria that needs to be considered. She cites it on page 1 of her opinion. The state's own witness testifies in support of conditional release.
These lawyers, man, they go into work every day, and I wonder, this is my assumption, do they go into work the same way like it's like an NFL player? They get in the locker, they in the locker room, they getting hyped, you know what I'm saying? You put your jersey on, you put your shoulder pads, your helmet on, and you go in, you ready to handle business. I wonder if the lawyers feel the same way, man. I wonder, because in my mind, I get that this is a very serious situation, but these people's lives are rarely impacted by the situation that they're representing in the court. And in my mind, the courthouse and all of that is kind of like it's a choreographed dance. You know what I'm saying? There's a way about which you do it. Same thing with football, same thing with basketball. And so I don't want to say that law is a sport, you know what I'm saying, to try to compare this this prestigious profession to guys, you know, playing sports and whatnot. But I wonder, because you know what I'm saying, they can he can defend her to death and try to prosecute the next person to life, you know what I'm saying, and then him, the person that's defending the other person, and the judge, they'll all go out for drinks after this, like they weren't just trying to go at each other's throats 30 minutes before. Same thing with the NFL. I don't know. What do I know, man? I don't know.
And I think almost everything Mr. Sapakowicz just said is a red herring. To get this court to be scared somehow into doing what I think is the right thing to do.
The judge acknowledged the state's argument Geyser did attempt to murder Peyton Lautner.
This was a serious criminal case, attempted murder. There are two defendants in the case. Both were children at the time that it happened, 12 years old. The victim was a child. But the case didn't resolve itself per se in the criminal field. It's not a criminal conviction. In this case, based upon the nature of the law and what happened, the court found that Ms. Geyser was not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. Then that moves it into the commitment field, the civil field that we're addressing today under Chapter 971, in particular 971-17 of the Wisconsin statutes. So this isn't about somebody going to prison. It's about somebody being committed to a mental institution, to a hospital, and how that person functions within that, with that institutional setting.
But in a stunning ruling, the judge sided with the defense.
In reviewing all of the reports and the matters, I'm satisfied that under the circumstances that the great court's going to grant the release. I'm satisfied that by clear and convincing evidence that under the current set of circumstances, Ms. Geyser does not pose a significant risk of bodily harm to herself or others, or of serious property damage.
That's crazy, man. A 10-year story wrapped up. 12 years old, they try to murder their friend, leave her for dead. They end up getting caught, going through the system, and now both of them seem to be free. That's I mean, you do your crime, you do your time. Maybe they pay their debt to society.
Now,
I wonder how this guy feels if next year, you know what I'm saying, she whacks somebody in an angry tirade or something. I don't know, bro.
When I make that finding, I take into account what happened. I take into account the dangerousness of what happened back in 2014.
I know she
I take into
happy,
account
boy.
what's happened since then, in particular in the last 6 months. I take into account the opinions of the doctors, but in particular, and it's been an important analysis for the court to make, that as the Randall decision talks about, that the ultimate determination of dangerousness requires a careful balancing of society's interest in protection from harmful conduct against the acquittee's interest in personal liberty and autonomy. In looking at the Randall case and of what happened in Randall and what the circumstances were of Randall, when I contrast Randall to Geyser, there's a tremendous difference in the rationale for rejecting supervised release in that case, in Randall's case versus in this matter. When I weigh that dangerousness concept and I come back to what happened and what the progress has been, Ms. Geyser doesn't fall into the same category as Mr. Randall in his petition for release and the denial of that release.
He's talking about a whole different case. But anyway, like I say, man, a 10-year story finally wrapped up. Hopefully the families feel like they got justice, you know what I'm saying? I ain't no judge or no jury. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? I'm just Big Nardo, you feel me? That's another video, man. We out. Catch y'all on the next time. Peace.